All right, everyone. So I'm going to mix things up a little bit. Usually I do these videos whenever I want to talk about a trade or a transaction or whatever it is. I do these pre-recorded videos, but this time I'm just going to try doing it live. As you can see, I've been working on my whole setup here, and I just wanted to try this things a little different. So as some of you may know, I am based in LA, so I just want to touch on this real quick. But it's been a rough week for lots of us, many people I know. Fortunately, I haven't been affected, thus, I'm able to do this right now. But it has been pretty rough. It's been kind of hard to even think about basketball, but I just wanted to put that out there. If you can, please, donate to any type of cause, whether it's to fight the fires or to, help any victims. But yeah, here's the live stream version. I tried to do a live stream in October. I wanted to talk about, the roster, just like what final roster cuts right before the season started with Scotto. And I had some audio difficulties, but I polished everything up, so I'm good to go. So Nick Richards for Josh Okogie. The trade just happened. Josh Okogie coincidentally just became trade eligible today. So I feel like this is one of the first trade deadlines or like lead up to the trade deadlines where we've had trades happen on December 15th and January 15th, which are like the 2 days that trades can kind of start happening, since there is a lot more players becoming eligible for trades around those times. So, sure. Oh God, I have a echo. There we go. I got rid of that. Sorry about that. Still having a little bit of kinks to work out, but so we kind of have two trades that are happening on the eve of these two trade dates where a lot of players become eligible. Only players who can't really get traded are ones that recently signed really big extensions or that got signed way too late into the season and can't be trade eligible. But that's it. Everyone's basically fair game now. So Phoenix, what they did, wrong one, sorry. That's Charlotte. Okay, I might as well start with Charlotte. It's not a big deal. I have less to say about them anyways. Okay, never mind. Back to Phoenix. So Phoenix, they have one of the most expensive teams in history. I recently wrote about them on the Third Apron, my Substack, where I talked about where their expenses in relation to the luxury taxes, they have the most expensive team when you look at the raw dollars, but as a percentage of the cap and like as a multiplier to whatever the luxury tax level is, because generally that's kind of where most teams try to keep their expenses at, it's not the highest. So with the Suns, they had a roughly $404 million team with their payroll and their luxury tax combined. And now it is... Well, why did it change back there? Okay. Now they are down to 380. So they have about $23 million in savings. And just to show how punitive the luxury tax system is, they only saved about $3.25 million in this trade going from Nick Richards, going from Josh Okogie to Nick Richards. But that alone gave them $23 million in savings because how deep into the tax they are. And that system's about to get even more punitive starting next season for the Suns, and we'll get into what their whole situation looks like next season. So $23 million total savings. The Josh Okogie contract basically made this happen. So the Suns, they signed Okogie back in the offseason, and it was pretty obvious why that signing was made, where they needed some extra money to do some trades, and they give him this $8 million guaranteed salary. Next year, he's also got $8 million non-guaranteed. And it added about like $55 or $60 million total to their expenses. So a lot of what you see on how expensive the team is now, a lot of it, a big chunk of that had to do with signing Okogie to that deal. And they are able to make this trade happen. They're able to do something with that salary. They get Nick Richards. Otherwise, they would have had to move one of their other top highest 6 paid players between KD or Royce O'Neal. Obviously, things have changed. I'm sure they'd like to get rid of some of these guys listed, but I'll touch on that a little later. So whatever they do next, most likely, they'll probably try to bring in some more impact players that can help the rotation. Suns clearly still in it, but just given how poorly this season has gone, I think they're still right below the play-in range. There's at least going to be a motivation to save some money, and so they save about $23 million here. I'll just touch on Bradley Beal. I just don't think that he's going to get moved. I've seen a lot of discussion on him as a potential trade candidate, and it seems like an awful lot for a guy that probably won't get moved in the end. Not even so much the no trade clause thing. What teams would he accept a trade to? Just more so the whole aspect. I don't know what team out there wants that remaining $111 million over 2 years. All they have now left after doing this Nick Richards trade, they have their 2031 first round pick and a second round pick for this year, a Nuggets 2025 second, which they can use, which will probably be in the mid 50s. So just given the lack of assets too, it's going to be very difficult for them to trade Bradley Beal. But then also Jusuf Nurkic to an extent, because he's now the 4th string center, got demoted to coming off the bench, and then quickly after that, no longer in the rotation. And with Nick Richards now there, it seems, maybe they try to bring him back in, but seems like the writing's on the wall there. So with Nurkic, I've been kind of trying to come up with some trades for him now, because it seemed like if the Suns have been linked to Nick Richards for like a couple weeks now, and nothing's really, and obviously now the trade has happened where the Hornets didn't want Nurkic. He's got $19 million left on his deal next year. So a team that wants him probably has to get sufficient assets, but also maybe get kind of view him as a buy low candidate. But I'll get to that in a little bit. So I do want to touch on the Suns, though, for next year, just because their whole payroll situation is pretty, it's probably even more confusing. So here's what they've got right now, and they're going to have roughly, the same level of expenses that they currently have this year, but this is just with 9 players. They still need to fill out the roster. So you would think that by decreasing from Okogie to Nick Richards, they save some money, but not so much. So here's this projection I have for the Suns. I made this when I was writing about their situation last week on my Substack, and this is kind of what the minimum payroll level would be if they do really nothing much differently. So this is before the Nick Richards trade, but this is assuming they cut Josh Okogie because his salary was non-guaranteed for next year. So if they were going to at least try to get some savings by doing that, then they fill out the rest of the roster with minimum signings, because they can't use any mid-level exception. They can't increase the payroll through trades because they're over the apron levels. Then at a minimum, they're already looking at nearly $490 million roster when you look at their payroll and their tax. Their tax would exceed the payroll. That's never happened in the NBA. The only time, the closest we've had to a luxury tax being equal to or more than a team's payroll were the 2022 Warriors. I think their tax was just $5 million less than their payroll. And thankfully that paid off. They won the championship that year. So the thing is, they're going to enter the repeater tax next year, so they're going to have higher rates, and then also rates and the third level and beyond are going to start to be way higher. So that's why their even though their payroll's at a similar level as it is this current season, that's why they're going to have such a higher expenses compared to this year. So now here's kind of what their projection is with Nick Richards. So the two big differences. One, I included Nick, but then the other thing is they also got that second round pick from the Nuggets. So they get a little bit of savings on that last roster spot. Instead of having another veteran minimum guy at that projected $2.3 million amount, now they can get a rookie minimum, which is a lot cheaper. But then, you've got a $500 million roster. So I do think there is going to be some motivation to save money. So what's next for the Suns? I don't think it's going to be Beal unless Durant or Booker ask for trades, which doesn't seem like that's happening. I would suppose Nurkic is the priority to be moved. He's really their only. These like him, Nurkic, him, Grayson Allen are like the two biggest salaries that they could potentially try to look to save money. So if you're looking for what team could make sense, I think obviously he's got to be a rebuilding team that has the flexibility to take him on this year and next year. And then also maybe views Nurkic as like a buy low. Maybe they think he can improve by being on the team next year. So as I'm looking through different types of trades, here's something I put together. Honestly, I'm not that in love with this, but this is kind of like what I see as more in the sense of realistic. So let's say the Wizards, they're interested in taking him in. And here's a 3-team deal I put together with the Suns and Lakers. So basically, the Lakers get Jonas Valanciunas. They have been linked to him since before Valanciunas signed with the Wizards. And so here they get him. I've got the Suns getting Gabe Vincent mostly to save money. They go from that 18 million to 11 million. I'll show how much that saves them. And then the Wizards would presumably get the last remaining first-round pick the Suns have to offer and the 2 remaining that the Lakers have to offer. I would think that in my gut, none of these teams do this trade. Maybe the Lakers do it. But this is just to show the type of unsexy deal that I think is kind of realistically out there for Nurkic, which kind of makes me think that I think it's even more realistic that they move him next summer once he's actually an expiring contract. It'll be a lot easier by then. But I went ahead anyways and just kind of plugged that in to show what that would look like for the Suns. Savings-wise, give me a sec. So, yeah, I plugged in Gabe Vincent, and then that would save them close to $50 million this year. So just the kind of thing that I think realistically they might be able to get for him. They're getting they feel sort of a need, whether it's a wing or a guard or wing or point guard position, and just try to save some more money. I think that's realistic what they're trying to do, though I am skeptical that 1 second-round pick, what they have left, is going to make it work. And if they're going to trade that 1 first-round pick they have remaining, they're probably going to want to get someone better than this. So that is my whole thing on the Suns. So then we've got Charlotte. So Charlotte, they've been probably the most active quote-unquote rebuilding team that has cap space, because we've seen the value of cap space just plummet, where we have far fewer good free agents on the market. So a lot of those players got squeezed. But then at the same time, a lot of the teams that did have cap space are either rebuilding, not so good. So they're not even trying to pursue these players anyways. And then you've got like teams like the Hornets, the Pistons. They're taking on some unwanted salaries, but they're not getting any first round pick value. A lot, like the closest that there was when I would say the Mavs traded Tim Hardaway and 3 second round picks to the Pistons to get Quentin Grimes. So maybe you would get that type of value for a first round pick if the team's taking on a bad salary, but they actually they made it work with 3 second round picks. So that kind of seems like the going rate now for like acquiring a role player and then also getting off some unwanted money. So which again kind of goes to why I'm not sure the Suns have enough to get off Nurkic. But the Hornets have been really active, where they've gotten 8 second round picks since the offseason just by taking on bad money. And not even bad money. They only have 1 year. All these players only have like 1 year on their deal. So they get a net of 2 for Nick Richards. They got 3 in the Karl Anthony Towns trades, basically 1 second round pick for each Knicks player that they had to take. 2 for Reggie Jackson, and then in a sense they also got Josh Green as well. And then they got 1 for taking on Devontae Graham, and he only had like a small $3 million partial guarantee. So look, it's not, they're not first round value, but I think the Hornets are wise to just get what they can. And if that's what the going rate is, okay. And they're pretty close to the luxury tax line, which is pretty rare for a team to have a cap space, which means your payroll is pretty low. They've been able to use the expanded trade exceptions and all this stuff to really run up their payroll fast. They already used up most of their room mid-level exception. So they could still do something else. They still have that disabled player exception for Grant Williams, about $6.5 million. So they could still use that comfortably while staying below the tax. Though if they're going to trade another one of their better players, maybe they could even save money for a bigger trade later down the line. And then they still have another move left to do, another salary acquisition or so of sorts, try to increase payroll some more, help another team out. And other than that, they are still pretty flexible heading into next summer. So they get off Knicks. He was non-guaranteed, which I'm sure the Suns are going to guarantee. And now they have all these non-guaranteed players, Cody Martin, Micic, Josh Okogie, Daquan Jeffries. So I've got them projected at roughly $23.5 million in cap space for next summer. That includes an estimate for their draft pick this year. However, that doesn't factor in Trey Mann. He's their only restricted free agent. And he hasn't played in about 2 months, so I'm not sure what his market is right now. But I could see him getting maybe, what if he gets around the same annual range as some of these guys over here? Then that would drop him to around 14, 15 million in cap space. We'll see what they end up doing the trade deadline, so that could change their projection. But just to show they are in a position where they can continue what they've been doing, have some cap space next summer, have that $8.8 million room mid-level exception to keep accumulating draft picks, keep on taking some on-one to salaries. And yeah, that's about it. That's everything I've got on this trade.